Okay, and what we want to do in this video is move on from the previous one, which we were talking about the three basic questions of economics. And now we're going to talk about a very important idea in economics and actually really throughout history. Okay, we're talking about economic systems, but before we get onto that, we have already said that production is wealth. And we've also said that it's the factors of production that produce the goods and services that you and I enjoy. The factors of production are the resources that produce goods and services. Usually sell them in the market if you're in the West, and therefore allow us to consume more with greater production. Okay, so the factors of production are the ones that produce the wealth. Okay, but an important question then becomes, what is the best way to use these factors of production to produce the most wealth? That's an incredibly important, and this leads us on to the idea of economic systems. Now, to give ourselves a definition of what an economic system is, what we're saying here is that there's a few ways to say it, there's a few ways to describe it, plenty of equally valid ways of describing what an economic system is. I will give you two. An economic system is a way a country uses its factors of production to produce goods and services. Now that's a bit generic, so maybe a better one is an economic system is who decides, or a way to decide who owns the factors of production. A way to decide who owns the factors of production. That's not a bad way to decide or define it. And essentially, and I'm going to mention this again in the next slide, essentially we've got three options. We've got socialism, we've got capitalism, or we've got a mixed economy. Now, an extreme version of socialism supposedly is communism. I'm not going to debate the difference between them. I'm just going to give you very general names of each of them. So, we have a free enterprise economy, otherwise known as a free market economy, otherwise known as laissez-faire economy, otherwise known as capitalism. Okay, so that's one way to decide or to explain who owns the factors of production. Another way is a centrally planned economy, socialism, or communism. Again, people get hung up on the distinctions in their mind between socialism and communism. And then, you have like Bernie Sanders describing himself as a democratic socialist and, all this kind of stuff. I'm not getting into the distinctions here. We're just keeping it vague, and I'll let you look into that yourselves. And the last one is a bit of a cop-out answer. It's some mix of the previous two. So some mix of capitalism and centrally planned. So now what we're going to do is talk about a market-based system, which is free enterprise, capitalism, or laissez-faire. So what it is a system, an economic system, where the allocation of scarce resources, essentially what we're talking about is the decisions on what to be produced, how they are to be produced. Okay, are we going to use a lot of labor or a lot of machines? And who gets these goods? The three economic questions are decided by whom? The interactions of individuals and entrepreneurs. Okay, so what we've got here, now I don't know who's who, but I think this person is the customer and this person is the entrepreneur, I think. So what we've got here is we've got the entrepreneur here setting up a coffee shop just because she believes that there's a chance or a large chance or a reduced risk of failure and a chance of success, i.e. the reward to enterprise's profit. So she has set this up because given her skill set and her backing herself as well, she has produced this wealth in order to provide people with goods and services that they want at a price that they're willing to pay. Which government official told her what to set up, what coffee she must use, how many people to hire, what machines or capital she must employ? Nobody. She made the decision as a free person what to do with her time. So she owns her own factor of production, which is her enterprise and her labor. Okay, so it was the interaction of individuals and entrepreneurs. And then you say, well, what do you mean by individuals and entrepreneurs interacting? Well, here we have a customer paying. So on some level, this customer here, she is willing to forego the cash that she is paying for the coffee and the cake or the whatever it is she's buying. And she's willing to pay that money for those goods. This person has decided what she is going to charge, and this person has decided she is willing to pay what this person is going to charge. So it is these people interacting with each other that says, oh, this is going to be a success. Maybe I'll open up another one. If no customer came, this entrepreneur would have to close down. So this entrepreneur here has the incentive to provide goods and services that people want at a price they're willing to pay, because that is the only way she is going to control costs and make a profit. And actually, sorry, I should also mention that she's going to try to control costs because that will increase her profit, and that will reduce the amount of resources, society's scarce resources that she uses, which leaves them more available to produce other goods and services, produce wealth, allow us to consume more, allow us to be richer. So it is the interaction of just buyers and sellers that decide what to be produced, what is going to be produced, how it's going to be produced, and who gets it. Okay? Now, if we look at this place here, this is, I believe, Hong Kong, and this is also Singapore here. Okay, so what we have are two examples there of capitalist economies and two examples of very successful economies where people, on the whole, are wealthy or wealthier than other types of economic systems. Now, we have here a command economy, central planning, communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it. And again, Cuba is one, Venezuela was another horrific example, North Korea is another horrific example of the failed policies of command economies. So it is an economic system where the allocation of scarce resources, what do I mean by this? The decisions on what to be produced, how these goods are to be produced, and who gets these goods are decided by whom? Essentially the government, the state. Now, that's enough of that for the moment. A mixed economy is some combination of the two. It's amorphous, essentially, okay? It's an economic system or an economy that incorporates elements of both central planning and also private enterprise, okay? So this here is, I'm Irish, this here is Dáil Éireann, Leinster House, okay? And that's where the Irish Parliament or the Dáil meet, okay? And on the other side is the Senate, in Irish also known as the Seanad, which is the upper houses of Parliament. So you have government decisions on making economic decisions, and you've got private enterprise making economic decisions, and you have the combination in a mixed economy of public and private, both in the making economic decisions, and Ireland is an example of that, okay? Now, so if we have an economic system with 0% government interference in the economy, they do not make any laws or regulations about what's to be produced, how it's to be produced, and who gets it. That would also really mean there'd be no taxes. Then what we're saying is we have a market economic system. Okay, now that's anarchy in that there's no government. That's the political definition of anarchy. If we have a situation where you have 100% government decision on what's to be produced, how it's to be produced, and who gets it, the three economic questions, you have a communist system, a planned economic system, you have socialism. Okay, but the thing is, with the mixed economies, most countries in the world are some combination or somewhere along this spectrum. Okay, now for a market economic system, what is to be produced is decided by three things essentially. Private ownership. So I own my own factor of production, labour, and I at the moment am deciding to use that labour to produce these economic videos. Okay, so that's the first thing. No government directive, commissar, agent has forced me to produce these videos. I, of my own volition, have decided to do them. All right, now, demand and supply together, we'll talk about those in later videos, and we've already talked about the importance of price signals. Okay, so if something's very expensive, that says, hey, get out there and produce that because you'll make a lot of profit in doing that, and that means more of that good is being produced, and as such, the price in real terms should fall. Okay, ceteris paribus, of course. So that these are the considerations when we're deciding what to be produced in a capitalist system. There is no we, there's only a collection of individuals that are pursuing their disparate, their different wants and desires based on their skills and preferences. Okay, so there's no one telling anybody what to do in terms of no government saying you need to produce this. Now, how it's to be produced? Two reasons, we've already talked about them. In a market system, it's profit maximization. I want to get the most profit possible. And one way to do that is minimize my costs. Okay, so they want to use the least factors of production and charge the highest prices that they can. And I know they get to choose the prices, but if they charge €1 million for a cup of coffee, no one's going to choose to buy it because no government is forcing people to buy it. So therefore, they can't continue to produce coffee or sell coffee in the long run if they're going to charge €1 million for it. It just can't happen. So It's the desire of profit maximization and cost minimization. And then who gets these goods? It is the demand from buyers. The buyers that are willing to pay the highest price essentially get those goods, given the limited resources of the coffee shop owner to produce the coffee. That's 100% true. Now, when we're talking about the planned economic system, the communism, socialism, centrally planned, as we said, we've got public ownership. So the government is going to say that no matter who owned it beforehand, we're just going to take control of this. Now we own it because we say so, okay? And government objectives. Then we've also got government ownership and government objectives decide what is to be produced. Government directives and government regulations decide how it's going to be produced, and government decisions decide on who gets it. So the question you have to ask is, in a capitalist economy, you have to serve your fellow man to make a profit. You have to provide them with goods and services that they want at prices they are willing to pay. In a centrally planned economy, you don't. You really don't. All you have to do is be in the government, and you can decide all of these things. And you can also decide who gets it, can also be government officials. So keep that in mind as well. Now, when we're talking about a mixed economic system, what we are saying is it's along a spectrum. So if you look at countries like Myanmar and North Korea, you'll find that they are closer to the government centrally planned way. If you look at Singapore, Denmark, just to be clear, people think that like the Scandinavian countries are massively socialist. In some ways they are, but in many other ways they're not. And it's very important. There was a president of Denmark, I believe, and I'm open to correction on this, who said, "We are not socialist." He literally said that. So it's very important when you hear people espousing the virtues of socialism, and then they give the Scandinavian countries as an example. There's many ways that they're not. They turned their back on it massively after the failures of very socialist policies in the 70s. Okay, so just keep in mind that it is along a spectrum that mixed economic systems lie. And if you're more towards the capitalist view, your standard of living of the average person tends to be a lot higher. If you're more towards the communist view, the average standard living of the average person tends to be a lot lower.